Hello, Pisces friends. Up today is your October 2025 Vedic Astrology forecast plus bonus tarot reading. So, Pisces, we're going to take a look at what Exalted Jupiter brings for you. That's your Lagna Lord, Exalted. And we'll look at the October 6th full moon and October 20th new moon so you can get a feeling for how this whole month of October is going to unfold for you. If you're new to the channel, welcome to Anastasia Tarot and Vedic Astrology, where I help you navigate the cosmic currents and surf the planetary wavelengths with ease and grace. So as we get into this Vedic astrology forecast for October 2025, all the chapters are time-stamped in the description, and as always with collective readings, results are going to vary depending on your personal chart, so take what aligns and leave the rest behind. This October 2025 Vedic astrology horoscope is for Pisces rising, Pisces moon, and Pisces sun, as per your Vedic sidereal astrology. Pisces, we're going to start out with your October 2025 astrology, looking at the chart for the full moon on October 6th, and then we'll get into the new moon on October 21st. Okay, so the first thing, Pisces, is you have Saturn and the moon on this particular full moon are over your first house. And quick note to Pisces moon people. So this isn't all Pisces, but Pisces moon, you are going through your Saresate cycle with Saturn over your moon. Saturn's over your natal moon for Pisces moon. And again, with this Saturn retrograde, which is in effect throughout October and going into November, Saturn may actually run over your natal moon 3 times. You know, it can go directly over and then retrograde back over and then go directly over again. Now, this is not all Pisces moon, but if you are feeling a lot of pressure from this Saresate, which is a 7.5-year cycle that is an initiation into Saturn's wisdom and Saturn's lessons. So for my Pisces moon friends, if you are feeling that pressure and you feel like Saturn may be running over your natal moon 3 times, definitely book a personal appointment so we can really get into how that's affecting your personal cycles, your personal chart. Okay, now getting back, just generally speaking for all Pisces, this full moon, right? What does full moon support? It's what has come to fruition and what we want to release. And with moon and Saturn together in this full moon over your first house, it's catching an aspect from the sun. So this is things in your own personality that you are ready to release. What's the first house? That is self and health. There's also a 6th house activation we'll get into in a minute, but with this full moon happening over your first house of self and health, you may find that it's a fruitful time to reflect on aspects of yourself, your own personality that you are ready to release over the next 2 weeks. And then if you're dealing with any health issues, it could be aspects of your, your health, your lifestyle, things of that nature that you feel ready to release over these next 2 weeks where the moon will be waning. And with Sun in the 7th house, Pisces, focus is definitely on relationships. And again, if you are looking for love, Sun in the 7th house potentially can bring partnership, love interest. It's definitely putting your focus there. A little bit complex to have this, Sun is catching Saturn's drishti. And so Saturn limits where he looks, right? So you may feel drawn toward relationship with the Sun in the 7th house, and yet you may feel limited by your relationships. So there can be some complexity there. So now let's have a look at your Lagna Lord, Jupiter. So Jupiter is in the 4th house, Gemini, quite a lovely placement. He will be on the move toward the end of the month, but meanwhile, in this beginning part of the month, Pisces, you can really enjoy the benefits of Jupiter in your 4th house, which rules, home, mother, vehicles. So you may find yourself just having more enjoyment from your home. Jupiter in the 4th house, again, not every Pisces, but Jupiter in the 4th house can bring, new home, new vehicle, that type of expansiveness and prosperity. If your mom is still with us, Jupiter can uplift that relationship with your mom. And even if you've been having, maybe you have some problems or difficulties with your mom, this Jupiter, it can be a nice influence, Jupiter in the 4th house, to smooth over some difficulties or conflicts you may have been having with your mom. So quite a nice activation of Jupiter in this 4th house. Now you've got some Dusthana houses activated, Pisces. You've got your 6th house activated, your 8th house activated, and your 12th house activated. So the Dusthana houses do bring difficulties, and, depending, they can bring suffering and difficulties, and all 3 of your Dusthana houses are activated. However, this 6th house activation of Venus and Ketu in the 6th house, this actually might benefit your health. Ketu as a disruptor, when Ketu is in the 6th, it can disrupt your health. It can bring, sudden health problems, sudden health issues. It's a disruptor. However, with Venus here, Venus is benefic, and Venus really softens some of that. And you can see they're tightly conjunct. Venus is 27 degrees Leo, Ketu is 24 degrees Leo. Venus is going to, the 6th house, other than health, the 6th house is also your daily grind, your sort of day-to-day work schedule, relationships with, coworkers and your daily schedule, that type of thing. So with Venus here, it can really support having good relations with your coworkers. Venus normally does not do well in the 6th house because, Venus is love, enjoyment, luxury. It wants to enjoy life. She wants to enjoy life. And 6th house is the daily grind. So, Venus can sometimes be, being too nice to your enemies, something of that nature in the 6th house. But all in all, if you're going to have a 6th house activation, this Venus and Ketu together, Venus is kind of softening any detrimental effects. And with Rahu in the 12th house, again, if you are going through any kind of health issues, Pisces, this Venus and Ketu can actually be a turning point where things turn for the better. And with catching this aspect from Rahu in the 12th, it could be a time, if you're doing any kind of fasting, detoxification, purification, any Ayurvedic practices of that nature, and also, energetic and spiritual healing. And that is also supported by this 8th house Mars in Mars is, somewhat weak in Libra. Mars doesn't like being in Libra, but Mars in the 8th house can definitely evoke Kundalini energy. So looking at this connection between the Dusthana houses. You know, many times through difficulties, you know, for example, if you are having health difficulties, the healing crisis comes about and it causes, you know, healing to occur. So there is some support here for health to improve, you know, and spiritual and energetic practices that support the health, and, you know, working with energy healing using this Kundalini energy. So all those types of things, Pisces, are supported for improving your physical and even mental health. Now, this activation of Mars and Mercury in the 8th house is a mixed bag. 8th house is, not only is it, you know, death, regeneration, mystery, you know, health, longevity, but it is on a more mundane level, it is joint finances. So Pisces, with this Mars in the 8th house, probably better if you're having any sort of conflicts or disagreements about joint finances. Just wait for the end of the month, because Mars will move out of the 8th house and, you know, it'll move into Scorpio around the, you know, I think the 27th, 28th of October. So just, if there's any conflicts having to do, you know, with either your marital partner, your business partner, any conflicts over joint finances, better to just not engage with those while you've got Mars in your 8th house. Wait until Mars passes into the 9th house. And Mercury in the 8th house can invite your thinking to go deeper into mystical areas. Okay, Pisces, so we've fast forwarded to the new moon on October 21st, and I did mention it being on October 20th, but in fact, when I manually input the data, we can see the moon here is at 4 degrees of Libra, and it's conjunct the sun, which is also at 4 degrees Libra, and it is that exact conjunction of the moon and sun that creates the new moon. Okay, so as you can see, super 8th house activation for this new moon. We'll get into that in a moment. The first thing to look at, Pisces, is your Lagna Lord Jupiter has shifted into Cancer. Jupiter shifted into Cancer on October 19th. This is lovely. Jupiter being in the lucky trine 5th house, very, very nice placement. Jupiter loves being in the 5th house. It's a lucky planet in a lucky house, and it's exalted. So Pisces, having your Lagna Lord exalted, quite nice. You know, it'll just elevate your general vitality, and just your, you know, self-esteem, vitality, all of those things get elevated by having benefic Jupiter. If you have kids, this Jupiter in the 5th house is, you know, going to bring some ease and grace to your relationships with your children. If there have been conflicts, this exalted Jupiter in the 5th house can be a really lovely time to resolve conflicts with your children. And for Pisces creatives, this Jupiter, exalted Jupiter in 5th house is lovely. It can really supercharge your creativity. And with this 8th house activation, which we're going to get into in a minute, your creativity can really have some depth and some mysticism going on with that. So this is really a lovely, lovely activation in this second part of October with your exalted Lagna Lord in the 5th house, Pisces. It's quite nice. Can see here that the 7th house activation continues. This time we have Venus in the 7th house. So Pisces, if you're looking for love, Venus in the 7th house definitely can bring a love interest in, you know, it can bring in partnership, love interest. for sure. Even though it is catching the aspect from, Saturn, which, is kind of a wet blanket that limits everything, still, especially with, with Jupiter in your 5th and Venus in your 7th, Pisces, if you are looking for love, this may come in for you at this time. And if you are already in a committed union, Pisces, this Jupiter in the 5th and Venus in the 7th, this can just be a very nice feel-good factor for your close relationship. Now, 8th house activation. Wow, Pisces, a lot of 8th house activation. So this is inviting some depth. And oh, there is one thing I just want to mention before I forget. So from October 8th or 9th through the 24th, there's this Parivartana Yoga, which has Venus, which is normally debilitated in Virgo, but it's in Parivartana Yoga with Mercury. So Venus is in Mercury's sign, Mercury in Libra is in Venus's sign, so these two have an exchange. It elevates Venus out of that debility for this time when the Parivartana Yoga is happening. And it just generally elevates your charisma, your communication abilities. And in your case, Pisces, it's activating the 7th and 8th house together. So joint finances could definitely be activated because you've got your partnership house is activated, and then your house of joint finances is activated. Again, with Mars there, you do want to take care. But on the level of just speaking generally about partnership, romantic or otherwise, with this 7th and 8th house activation, you can really get deep. 8th house is the house of depth, mystery, what's going on beneath the surface. And this Parivartana Yoga is, invites communication. So if you are in an existing union, and again, it could be marital or it could be business, but this can encourage you to get really deep in your communication about, defining or even redefining your, your union, your partnership. And it can be done with a lot of depth and a lot of love and really kind of getting to the root of things with this 8th house. And so the new moon is the seeds to plant that we want to see grow over the next 2 weeks. So with this 8th house activation that you've got going on, Pisces, good time to plant seeds and, metaphorically for, relationship. If you're looking for love and, wanting to manifest a love interest, this can be a nice time to plant those seeds in your practice, your meditation. It can also be like if you're really, really wanting a spiritual transformation, and, with Rahu in this 12th house, this is offering some subtle support for spiritual transformation. So if you are wanting on a very deep level, spiritual regeneration, spiritual transformation, maybe you've been working with shadow aspects, definitely having Saturn over your 1st house will churn up some of your shadow aspects, your samskaras, repetitive karmas that you may be willing to release. This 8th house can really support transforming, transmuting any, repetitive patterns, these shadow behaviors that you're just really ready to integrate, release, transform them. So this is a deep activation. And with the sun in the 8th house, again, you may have an eye on your health and your health, longevity. How does your lifestyle support your longevity? If you are having, any chronic conditions, looking into the energetics and energetic healing with this, this Rahu in 12th house, Ketu in 6th house, and Mars in 8th house. All of those can really speak to energetic healing for any sorts of, chronic health issues. Obviously, that's only going to be some Pisces, not all Pisces. But generally speaking, for all Pisces, super 8th house activation really invites you to go deep. And it's quite nice for happy Halloween, happy Day of the Dead. So you may, just for fun, if you do anything for Halloween, Halloween is all about the 8th house. So it might be a fun, between the between this new moon and going into Halloween, make friends with your dark side, go deep into it, make friends with your dark side, Pisces, because you have definitely the planetary support for doing that. Okay, so that is going to wrap up your astrology, and we'll get into your tarot reading for October 2025 next. Hello, Pisces friends, and welcome to your October 2025 tarot reading. We'll get started. And I'm going to pull 3 cards for you. Okay, Pisces, so we have the 8 of Coins, the Hanged Man, and the Page of Coins. So Pisces, with this 8 of Coins, this speaks to material and health stability. Coins are the earth element, and 8 is a very stable number. So Pisces, I'm looking over at your chart here, and I know my Pisces moon friends, you're going through Sade Sate right now. And you have also, by the end of October, this 7th house activation with Venus in your 7th house. So accepting the discipline of Saturn, right? Saturn is a planet of self-discipline, limitations, and with Saturn going over your 1st house, this is really inviting you with this card to create stability in your life. And it could be by creating stability on the material plane, for example, your daily spiritual practices, your daily lifestyle practices. This is going to support you going through this Saturn over your 1st house, is to really look at creating stability. Financially, this is quite a nice card. It speaks to financial stability, which, looking over at your chart, you've got Jupiter. By the end of the month, you have Jupiter in the 5th house. So this is quite nice for stabilizing your creative projects and things of that nature. Now, going into the Hanged Man, this is a major arcana. And so things may feel hung up for you, Pisces. Things may feel delayed. And of course, this is very much Saturn as the slow-moving planet. It's the slowest moving planet of the classical 7 planets. And so you may feel frustrated with things happening slower than you would like them to happen. And that's what Saturn does. For Pisces moon, it's going to affect you more emotionally and mentally. You may be feeling frustrated with things happening slower than you would like. And then also for Pisces rising, Pisces sun, Saturn is going over your sign and he's going to slow things down. That's what Saturn does. Now, the old meaning of this Hanged Man card, in modern tarot, it means, hung up and delayed. Now, the older meaning of this card, going back to the 1400s and 1500s in Renaissance Italy, the hangman had to do with betrayal. This card relates to the Christian mythos of Judas Iscariot. And so with all these planets in your 8th house, happy Halloween, by the end of October, this latter half of October, you really have a lot of 8th house activation. And this is going to invite you to go deep. And, you have 8th house activation, you've got Saturn over your 1st house, and you also have a 12th house activation with Rahu there. So you may be confronting, Pisces, some really deep shadow sides of your personality and your emotions, emotional patterns. And you may feel stuck with them. And, that's a really part of the universal human condition, right? If these shadow patterns were easy to break through, we wouldn't be struggling with our shadow side. But Pisces, this is a really fruitful time to go deep into your shadow side with this 8th house activation and the 12th house activation. So there may be times, Pisces, if you're looking at past relationships or just past patterns of your emotions, your thinking, where you felt that you betrayed yourself. And so this is a time to really, on a deep level, get in touch with your authentic self and forgive yourself for the times maybe you betrayed your own intuition or you betrayed yourself to please other people in relationship. And many Pisces really struggle with that because, right, we want to merge with people in the relationship. And in merging in the relationship, sometimes we abandon ourselves. So this is really speaking to, in this type of shadow work, confront those times where you may have betrayed yourself and make some peace with that. And then also, of course, going forward, using the stability of, good daily habits as far as, meditation, self-care, and giving yourself time and space to go into the shadow side of your emotions in a meditative space. And by doing this in a structured way, giving yourself, daily, weekly, whatever that is for you, Pisces, but giving yourself a stable, regular time to really explore these issues of self-betrayal or when you've abandoned yourself for the needs of others, things of that nature. This is really going to support you. And pentacles, coins, right? That's the earth element. It may be slow going. And, we've already mentioned, Saturn over your 1st house is a slow planet. So have some self-compassion. It's sort of slow and steady wins the race here. Now, getting into this final card is the Page of Pentacles. So Pisces students, this is a beneficial card for Pisces students if you're embarked in schoolwork, a course of study. Saturn rewards learning, and Saturn wants you to learn, to spiritualize your life, to pay off your karmic debts. Saturn really supports learning. So for Pisces students, this is really a time to, be stable in your studies and your study habits. And speaking more generally for all Pisces, If you find, as you're going into some of these shadowy issues of, self-betrayal, self-abandonment, keep an open mind and look at it, because of course, right, when we go into that dark stuff, it can be, oh my God, how did I do that to myself? That sort of emotion. And look at this process, Pisces, as learning. You are learning about yourself. You're learning about your mind. You're learning about your emotions. And you're learning about how to stay true to yourself. So if you approach this type of shadow work with a spirit of learning, it really helps get out of that judgment that some of us fall prey to, judgment, self-shame. Why did I make that mistake? Why did I abandon myself for that relationship? Or, whatever that is for you. Approach it with a teacher's love, a mother's love. You're learning. You're a soul that is here on this planet Earth learning how to deal with life in a body and, with a personality and emotions. So Pisces, really approach this process as a student of life. Now let's get into your numerology. We're not going to use this page. He's not a number card, but we have 8 plus 12 is 20. And in the major arcana, the Triomphe of the Tarot, 20 is the Judgment card. And this is really a wonderful card. It is a card of rebirth. And, for Pisces dealing with health concerns, obviously that's not going to be all Pisces, but for some Pisces, if you've been dealing with health concerns, it's really a wake-up call to make those lifestyle changes that are going to support your good health. And the Judgment card also is a card of radical change and rebirth. So you may find in this journey through your dark side and through Saturn being over your first house, that as you are more and more releasing that which no longer serves you, studying it, understanding it, there's a radical self-acceptance and rebirth coming where the true self starts to bubble up from inside your soul. And this true self can guide you in some pretty radical directions toward, radical self-acceptance and this rebirth process that comes about when you're willing to journey into that dark side, confront it, integrate it, study it, make peace with it, and this leads to a lovely, lovely rebirth for the soul and the spirit. Thank you so much for watching, Pisces. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe. And wishing you the blessings of good health, peace, and prosperity for October 2025. Namaste.